Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. I hope that everyone has had a wonderful weekend. I hope that everybody is doing great. I know that for some across the eastern side of the United States, you may be experiencing, like I am, some of this weather. It's a little bit on the rainy, stormy side outside today, so it's a little definitely overcast. And I hope that you all have had a great and wonderful resurrection weekend. I know a lot went down for some people. Their resurrection weekend actually started on Friday, and they went to their services, or they had productions, cantatas, plays, you name it. We were doing all of that right over the weekend. And now it is Monday, and guess what? Christ is still risen, and we hope that he is still risen and alive in you, and that you are not having a resurrection hangover. So I hope that you are ready to hear for today. This is Monday Motivation for Daring Dialogues. We try to do something every Monday to motivate you and get you going for the week. Good morning, Bespoke. Good morning, Prophet Jonathan. If you are new into the space and you want to put your name up or where you are signing in from, that would be great, so I can greet you as well. So today we are back in our book, Pathfinders, The Journeys of 16 Extraordinary Black Souls. And so we're going to be looking at one gentleman today. And then I'm going to read you just a snippet from Tony Evans' book, God's Unlikely Path to Success. Good morning from Buffalo. Welcome into our space. This is called Rebounding in Life, so I want to share that with you today. And then I want to give you and leave you with some power verses where it tells us that God leaves our surrender up to us. A lot of times people think that God is going to make them do something. He's really not. As much bad characteristics are given to God by those who don't want to follow him or love him, the reality is God leaves our surrender up to us. All right. So let's take a look at our inspiring person for today. Awesome. Our inspiring person for today is Charlie Wiggins. And there is Charlie. You can probably tell from the picture what Charlie did for a living. Charlie was a race car driver. Welcome, Prophet Lakia. Good morning. So Charlie Wiggins was a race car driver, and he lived from 1897 to 1979. It says, this auto race will be recognized throughout the length and breadth of the land as the single greatest sports event to be staged annually by colored people. And happy birthday. I know I said it to you online this weekend, but also happy new year to you, Lakia. I know this is going to be a great year for you. This auto race will be recognized throughout the length and breadth of the land as the single greatest sports event to be staged annually by colored people. That was sports writer Frank A. Young in the Chicago Defender. The date was July 5th, 1924. Young was writing about the upcoming 100-mile race at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis. Soon, chocolate jockeys will mount their gas-snorting, rubber-shod speedway monsters as they race at death-defying speeds, and the greatest array of driving talent will be in attendance in hope of winning gold for themselves and glory for their race. Without meaning to, Young gave William Rucker the perfect name for the event, the Gold and Glory Sweepstakes. All right. William Rucker was the black man promoting the event. The one who inspired it was wee Charlie Wiggins. Wee because he was slim, small-boned, and not that tall. But there was nothing at all wee about Charlie's spirit. Born in a horse and buggy days in the cusp of the 20th century, Charlie Wiggins grew up in the hardscrabble river town of Evansville, Indiana. He was working at age 9. After school, he went off to the coal mine to hustle up 5-cent shoe shine jobs from the boss men. In time, Charlie was playing hooky from school. Instead of learning, he was earning money on Main and 11th Streets with a shoe shine kit. The kid made about $1 a day. With that dollar, he could have bought a sirloin steak and still had change. But more than money, young Wiggins loved cars. Lucky for him, 2 of his regular customers were car dealers, Henry Benninghoff and Eugene Nolan. They had a garage a stone's throw away from Charlie's spot. During one shine, Charlie told these white men how crazy he was about cars. He soon became a regular at the garage. He went from watching mechanics to making repairs to earning pocket change by washing cars and doing other jobs. A quick learner, he had just the right stuff to be a mechanic. He could tell just by the sound, his niece remembered. She was recalling the day Charlie was talking with Mr. Benninghoff when they suddenly heard a troubled car coming their way. Sight unseen, Charlie diagnosed the problem, judging only by the sound. Sure enough, when the mechanics got under the hood, they found that Charlie had nailed it. In the summer of 1914, 17-year-old Charlie Wiggins became a mechanic apprentice at the Benninghoff Nolan garage. He fetched things, he toted things, he was sometimes sent to junk yards to scavenge for spare parts. That was his day job. At night, he worked as a railroad porter. After the United States entered World War I in April 1917, Wiggins wound up holding down the fort at the garage as one by one the white mechanics joined the armed forces. When Wiggins went to the recruiting station to enlist, he was given the brush off and told, "This is a white man's war." Let's keep going. That's a whole other subject. While other men were stateside training or overseas fighting, Wiggins was becoming a matchless mechanic. Then, in the summer of 1922, he moved about 200 miles north to Indianapolis, landing a job as a mechanic in this car lover's paradise. When it came to automobile manufacturing, Indianapolis rivaled Detroit, Michigan as a motor city, producing a lot of high-end cars like the Duesenberg. What's more, the city was home to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which held its first 500-mile race in 1911. Charlie Wiggins would have given anything to enter the Indy 500, but racial prejudice prevented this. That didn't stop him from dreaming, so much so that he built a race car in the garage where he worked. He did it on his own time. He did it with a heap of parts from junkyards. When done, he named his race car the 23 Ski-Doo Wiggins Special. He just wouldn't give it up, his wife Roberta remembered. Race after race, he kept on entering his car, and race after race, they kept turning him away. But he was proving a point. He was exposing their prejudice. The white drivers all liked Charlie, but those promoters would have nothing to do with him. Repeated rejection got black folks talking, then acting. With several other black men, William Rucker established a car racing league, the Colored Speedway Association. Now, did any of you know that there was a colored car racing league? I didn't know that. Colored Speedway Association. The CSA planned to sponsor races in various cities. The Golden Glory Sweepstakes would be its annual crowning event. So, yet another part of history that some people did not know. Now you look at NASCAR and you would think that black people just started racing cars, according to NASCAR, maybe about the last 20, 30 years. Again, that's a whole other subject. About 12,000 black people, most dressed to the nines, were in the stands for the first Golden Glory Sweepstakes on August 2nd, 1924. The 28 racers included Cowboy Moore from Chicago, driving his 4-cylinder Dreamland Duesenberg, Jack Longshot Sargent from St. Louis, Malcolm Hannon, a local who won first place prize of $1,200. Hannon averaged 63.5 miles per hour in his four-cylinder Barber Warncock Ford. Charlie Wiggins sat out the first Golden Glory Sweepstakes race. This perfectionist didn't have the Wiggins special as precisely tuned and calibrated as he wanted it, but he was ready for the next race and the next and the next. Charlie Wiggins came in fifth in 1925, but he did much better in future races, coming in first in 1926, 1931, 1932, and 1933. As Sunday, September 20 of 1936 neared, the odds were that Wiggins would be the first place winner in that year's sweepstakes. So here is one of the posters from back then, and as you can see, it's got Glory and Gold Sweepstakes. It's got 100 miles, all colored race drivers. You know, so they didn't wait. They didn't wait for the white establishments, right, to accept them. They got tired of waiting. So they started their own association, right? I hope this is motivating you. I hope you see something in this. They didn't wait. All right, so he says black and white drivers agree that Wiggins is one of the best race drivers Indianapolis has ever produced, said one article. The 1936 Gold and Glory Sweepstakes was delayed, first by a thunder shower, then by a debate over the viability of one entrance car. As the clock ticked, the worries began to mount. State law mandated that all businesses and events be over and done by 5 p.m. on Sundays. With time running out, the race finally started at 4:10 p.m., but without proper maintenance of the dirt track. It needed to be oiled and watered close to the time the race began to cut down on the amount of dust the cars kicked up. The track was soon so dusty that you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. He and 25 other racers were still in the midst of the second lap when a car skidded and spun out of control. In less than a minute, the Wiggins special, going at about 80 miles per hour. "My God, Charlie, my God," Wiggins' wife screamed as she hurried over to a nightmare. A 13-car pileup. It was horrible, with vehicles melting into a mountain of rending, distorted metal and buried men. Reporting the Indianapolis Recorder. Miraculously, no one died on the track, but there were injuries, serious injuries in Wiggins' case. He was rushed to a hospital where doctors saved his life, but not his right leg. It had to be amputated. After he recuperated, Charlie Wiggins didn't bow out of his beloved sport. No longer able to compete, this man, called the Negro Speed King, did the next best thing. He coached younger men who had a need for speed. And that, my dear friends, is the story of Charlie Wiggins. And this actually is one of the photographs of that day. As you can see, the flames in the background here, where they were able to, some people were able to at least get out of their cars. But understand, what can we learn from Charlie Wiggins' determination? He was one who started out as one who started working at age 9. 9. Not 13, not 16, not 18, 9. Right? And he had his own work ethic beyond what his parents were telling him to do. He had his own work ethic. He knew his own mind, right? He developed a passion for cars. Then he wound up becoming an apprentice. He wound up availing himself to learn about cars. Then he got into building cars. Then he got into racing cars. So you can kind of see a clear pattern through his life of how his interests in things and desires progressed and culminated in his fascination with car driving. And even, as it says, at the end of his life, well, not really at the end of his life, but, you know, once he had that accident and he had to get his leg amputated, most people would have stopped right there and said, you know, okay, this is the end of that. You won't be doing anything else in that field. But rather than him becoming bitter about the fact that he would no longer be in a car driving, what did he do? He coached younger men who had a need for speed. He did not let his own tragedy of not being able to get behind the wheel again and experience his passion in a certain way take away from the ability to encourage other young people to get involved in the sport. So he didn't just pack up his bags. He didn't just say, woe is me. He didn't just have a pity party and say, well, since I can't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Right? We know we run into people like that. If they can't be involved in it in a specific way, or if they can't do it themselves, they become the catalyst to preventing other people from getting it done, as opposed to what Charlie does in this story of his life. As opposed to what he does, he goes and coaches younger men. So he's still within what he believes, he has a passion and a calling to do, so to speak. And he doesn't let the fact that he cannot physically do it get in the way of him helping other people. Yes, unfortunately, there are people who have made themselves gatekeepers of some of everything. And sometimes I have to ask the question, isn't that exhausting? Jesus said in Matthew 23 that there would be some who don't enter into the kingdom, right? And on top of them not entering into the kingdom, they prevent other people from entering the kingdom. So not only are they not going in, but they're making sure other people don't go in as well. That's got to be exhausting. Give me some Charlie Wigginsons in the kingdom. Give me some people who will say, you know what? Listen, I'm retired. I may be injured. I may be getting older. Maybe I can't do this particular thing, but I can help somebody else. I can show them what I know. I can take my experience and sow it into the next generation. That, to me, is inspiring. People who are willing to take what they know and sow it into the next generation. All right? So that is our Pathfinder for today, Charlie Wiggins. I believe we have one more Pathfinder in this book, and then we will be done with Pathfinders. So let's talk a little bit about Tony Evans' book, God's Unlikely Path to Success, How He Uses Less Than Perfect People. This is a really, really good book for devotion time. If you're a person who doesn't have time to read books, all the way through per se, he's got everything in this book broken up into different sections so you don't have to read it all the way through. And in this book, he talks about Moses, Rahab, Jacob, Jonah, Esther, Peter, Samson, and Sarah. I want to read you the section in his book called Rebounding in Life. Rebounding in Life. Because some of you may be at a place where you need to rebound. You need to rebound. You need to regroup. You need to refocus. You need to rethink some things. I know here lately, a lot of things that believers have been facing is a recalibrating of their faith, right? A recalibrating of what you have known about Christ versus what you are seeing that is being performed by people who say they are Christians. All right, somebody agrees. I got some hearts over there. I got a yes, right? So I know right now, a lot of Christians are having an identity crisis. Nobody has to say amen, but I know because I have several friends and I pay attention to what is happening in our climate worldwide. There are lots of Christians who are having identity crisis right now. Some of them are like, listen, I thought I knew what I knew, but at this point, I don't know what to believe. Because what I'm reading about Christ versus what I'm seeing from Christians who say they know the same God that I know, Something, something, as Keith Sweat would say, something, 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 something just ain't right. I know you didn't know I knew Keith Sweat. I know. I don't listen to secular music anymore, but I did, okay? So I know. Keith Sweat said something is just not right. Something is just not right. Right? When I take a look at what the word says, and then I take a look at what Jesus' disciples are doing in the earth, I'm confused. Okay, I made that word up too. It's okay. You're going to live. I'm confused. I'm confused at what I see versus what I read and versus how God commands us to act toward our fellow human being. All right? So you may be in that place where you're having some identity crisis. It is okay. Here's the wonderful thing about God. God doesn't leave us in our identity crisis. God actually doesn't even get offended when we question what we've always thought we've known. Now, I can't guarantee that for human beings. Some human beings actually may get offended because you may be at a point in your life where you're questioning some things about what you believe in your faith. But God doesn't get upset about your questions. He's God. He's not intimidated. He's not threatened by the questions that we may have for him, the questions we may have about what we see, the questions we may have about how his name is being used for ungodly means, how his name is being used to justify oppression, how his name is being used to snatch resources from poor people, widows, etc., etc. So God is not offended by that. He's not offended by questions. All right? So it is okay to be in a place where you are questioning what it is you know versus what it is you see going on. It's okay. Let's take a look at what Tony Evans says about rebounding in life. He says, over the past 30 years, one of the highlights of my ministry has been serving as the chaplain for the NBA Dallas Mavericks. If you've ever been to a professional basketball game, you know that each minute is filled with energy, sweat, determination, and the finest of athletic skill. Teams battle for the prize of being declared that night's victor. Players run, fake, shoot, and block in an effort to get a ball through a rim as many times as possible. One element of the game that makes basketball so intriguing is the rebound. A rebound occurs anytime there's a missed shot or a missed free throw. In the case of an offensive rebound, anyone on the offense grabs the ball after it bounces off the rim and puts it up again or runs another play. Rather than giving up possession of the ball, a rebound retains possession, giving the offense another chance to score. If the game of basketball didn't have the option of the rebound, it would slow down considerably. The pressure underneath the basket would greatly diminish, and missed shots would be all the more painful to swallow. Rebounds allow the players to take a bad situation and make it good again. What a rebound does in the game of basketball, God does in the game of life by giving another chance after a failed attempt. Lord have mercy. A rebound in life is a do-over. It proves that even in life, it's not too late to try again. Somebody today probably needs to know that if you're still doing this, okay, if you're still breathing, you have an opportunity to do some things over. You do. I know you could probably look at your life and probably say, I wish I could go back and do a couple of things over. And I would encourage you to really think about how many things you could actually really redo over. Think about it. Ask yourself, is it really too late for me to redo some things over? Take some inventory. I know. Some people might say, I don't have time to be taking no inventory. I don't have any time to be looking over my life. If you don't have time to look over your life, you're too busy. If you don't have time to look over your life, you are too busy. So take some time and reflect and think about what are some things that you could probably do over. Okay? He says, over the course of this book, you have met several different people who made a rebound, right? I kind of listed who's in this book. And he says, we've seen a murderer become a deliverer, right? Moses. He was a murderer. He became a deliverer. He got a chance to have a do-over. If you read the story of Moses, you know Moses did not start out as a deliverer. He started out as a murderer, but he became a deliverer. I know a couple of people like that personally who started out as prisoners, prison convicts, and now they're helping other people come out of prison and start their life anew. That's a do-over. He said, we've seen a harlot end up in the messianic line of Christ. Not only was she a harlot, but she became a rescuer, right? Because it was because of her giving direction to the spies that allowed her family, right? She didn't just say, if I give you this direction, keep going about your business. No, she said, if I show you all, right? If I tell you all or give you all directions, I'm going to need you all to come back for me and my family and make sure we don't go down with whatever y'all about to do. So she actually, Rahab, became a intercessor, an interceding prostitute. She became an intercessor for her entire family's safety and salvation. She didn't just leave her family out. She said, okay, I know you all are coming back. You're going to tear down this city, but make sure you rescue me and my family out of here. And they said, go and read the story. They said, make sure your family is with you when we come back. And they were able to rescue her family, and she wound up in the messianic line because Rahab was Boaz's grandmother. We've seen a trickster turn into a patriarch. That was Jacob. We know Jacob. If you read his story, Jacob was a trickster. He got by got by with his brother. He convinced his brother to sell his birthright. Brother got angry with him. Jacob had to leave the family for several decades because his brother wanted to kill him. So we've seen a trickster turn into a patriarch. We've seen a rebel turn into an evangelist, Paul. We've seen a player deal the last hand, Samson. And a doubter ushered into the hall of faith through her belief in God's promise of a son, Sarah. Each of these individuals could have given up when things looked bad. Each could have walked away. Each could have thrown in the towel, sat on the bench, or just plain quit. But none did. Instead, each of them took a difficult situation and tried again, this time with faith. As a result of their faith, they all ended up scoring nothing but net. And I love Tony Evans's analogies. So what is he saying? In the Christian life, just as in basketball, a missed shot does not mean the game is over. Somebody needs to write that down for themselves today. A missed shot does not mean the game is over. Checking my time here. So, he says this: if there is still time left on the clock, and we know there is because you are still here, it's not too late for a rebound. In order to get a rebound, you need to position yourself in the vicinity of the basket. You can't be on the other side of the court. You can't be in the stands. You can't be in the parking lot and expect to grab the rebound. Neither can you be removed from a close and abiding relationship with Christ and expect to experience his divine restoration to your situation. So we got to stay close to the one who gives us the second chance. As famed NBA rebounder Larry Bird has said, most rebounds are taken below the rim. That's where I get mine. Knowing this, he intentionally positions himself near the rim because the key to a successful rebound is to be where you can move forward once you grab the ball. Likewise, the key to a successful rebound in Christian life is to position yourself underneath the comprehensive rule of God. When you align yourself with God's rule, God's kingdom agenda, you are in the best position for your rebound. So I want to encourage you. It is not too late. Don't let your circumstances, don't let where you have been, what you have done, who has done what to you, or what you're up against dictate the final outcome of your life. You have the ability to rebound. You have the ability to come back. You have the ability to take what someone else may have said is going to be a deficit for you and turn it into a strength. This is part 1. We're going to come back in 30 seconds with part 2 of our Monday motivation, and we are going to talk about God leaves surrendering up to you. I hope that you will come back for part 2. We're just taking a commercial break. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Make sure that you clock back in with us. See you soon.